All right, so moving on to the next segment, we're going to pivot here over to the world of boxing, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on Jaron Ennis moving up to the super welterweight division in the sport of boxing. So, last week on social media, we seen Jaron Ennis hint to moving up in weight class for the first time in his career. He's always fought at the welterweight division, the unified welterweight champion. Jaron Ennis holds the IBF title, the WBA title, and the Ring Magazine title, has indicated that he's moving up to the next division, that being the super welterweight division. And he said he wants all the smoke. He wants to fight the best of the best. I'm looking forward to this new chapter in Jaron Ennis' career. So I'll be sharing my thoughts on Jaron Ennis, signaling that he's going to move up to 154 in the sport of boxing. So I like this. I like the fact that Jaron Ennis wants to fight the best of the best. He has indications of doing that, moving up to the super welterweight division at 154 in the sport of boxing. I think this is one of the deepest divisions in the sport of boxing today. And right off the bat, he's already signaled that he wants to fight Virgil Ortiz in his first fight at 154. I think that's one of the biggest fights to be made at the 154 division, probably the biggest in terms of explosive fireworks. Both fighters in the prime of their careers, undefeated, both have possessed knockout power, great boxing IQs, can fight in the pocket. That fight is very exciting to me, so I hope we get that first. But there's also some big fights on the horizon for Jaron Ennis at 154. You got that fight with him and Virgil Ortiz, like I just said. You got that fight between him. You got a fight between him and Sebastian Fundora that'd be really good. Jaron Ennis versus Xavier Zayas. I think a fight between Jaron Ennis and Jermell Charlo, whenever he wants to get in the boxing ring, is pretty good. Jaron Ennis versus Tim Tszyu. Jaron Ennis versus possibly Terrence Crawford, depending on what happens between him and Canelo Alvarez in September, if Crawford wants to still fight and move back down to 154. So there is a lot of big and massive fights for Jaron Ennis, who I do believe is going to be a future top 10 pound-for-pound fighter. He's already proven why, and he has all the skills, all the intangibles to be a great fighter in the sport of boxing. And you look at what he's done at 147 at the welterweight. It's been a long time coming. He's been at this division for his entire career, and at times he's looked like he's struggled to make 147. I know there's a lot of fighters that are considered as weight bullies, or a lot of fighters that look like skeletons and stick figures trying to bust their ass to make the particular weight. Jaron Ennis is one of those fighters where you looked at his body, he just looked like an ant out there trying to make 147. He just didn't look right, and you could tell it was time for him to move up. But at this division, what else was there for him to prove? We could have went the undisputed route. Mario Barrios being the weakest link, holding the WBC title. He might lose the title in July against Manny Pacquiao, depending on how that fight goes. I'll get into who else holds the other title in Brian Norman Jr., but Jaron Ennis already holds the IBF title, already holds the WBA title, already holds the Ring Magazine title. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you hold that Ring Magazine title for being the best fighter in your weight class. So that speaks volumes for how dominant Jaron Ennis has been at 147. And he held the IBF title. And one of the reasons why I just said that he had a hard time making the weight, if you guys don't know, the IBF rules, you can only rehydrate up to 10 pounds when you hold that championship belt. And those IBF championship fights that are sanctioned by the IBF, you can only rehydrate up to 10 pounds. So we do the math on it. Jaron Ennis was only, if he had to do a lot to cut to 147, he was only allowed to rehydrate up to 157 getting in the ring. But when he fought Stanionis in April, that rule went out the window because the WBA title was also involved. And when there's title unifications, the IBF can't do anything about it because there's other sanctioned bodies that are particularly involved in the fights. So that his last fight against Stanionis, yes, he did look like he was more comfortable and looked like he could rehydrate the way how he wanted to. But look at his other performances as of late. He just looks like he's outgrown the weight. And that happens when a powerful knockout artist like Jaron Ennis has to move up. So I think this is a long time coming, but moving up for Jaron Ennis, I think it's the only thing that I have to say is unfortunate, and I hope we get this fight one day, is I think he would have steamrolled Mario Barrios in a title unification fight. I think he just would have knocked him out within 6 rounds, respectfully. But I just wish we got that fight between him and Brian Norman Jr. And that's a fight that we can look forward to because they're at 154 one day because they're already building towards it. The bad blood is there. The fathers are even beefing with each other at this point. But I wish that was a fight that we could have got sooner. And especially after Brian Norman Jr.'s performance that he had in Japan either Wednesday or Thursday morning this previous week, where he knocked out the Japan fighter and knocked him out to the point where he sent him into the hospital So I think that's going to be a badass fight when we get that at 154 one day. But in terms of excitement, I'm very excited. Again, I think Brian Norman Jr. was the only fight for Jaron Ennis that would have gave him some problems, some issues at this particular weight class. If he stayed at 147, he could have fought Devin Haney. I think he personally knocks out Devin Haney and defeats Devin Haney. Same with Ryan Garcia. I think he knocks out Ryan Garcia, breaks his will in the boxing ring. Same with Rolly Romero. I think he would eventually figure out Rolly Romero and knock him out. So there were some other big fights, and also you could throw in the Teofimo Lopez, but I'm not counting that because Teo says he wants one thing and then ducks another opposition. So I'm not counting that. But there was some big fights still at 147 for Jaron Ennis. But when you outgrow the weight, it's time to go. Plus, there's already some big monumental fights at that weight class, like I just said, for Jaron Ennis once he moves up to 154. But I'm looking forward to the next big chapter for Jaron Ennis, moving up to the super welterweight division. I think he's going to have a successful career. The time that he spends at this division, I think he possibly be he's going to be a world champion in this division, hands down. I think he could become a unified champion at this division, possibly undisputed at this division. And I think he's going to establish himself as a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter. But if there's anything I wish the boxing gods would align, it's a fight between Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz right off the bat at 154. Give me my money. I'll give you my money, my props. I'll give both respective fighters my props if we get that fight next. But those are my thoughts on Jaron Ennis moving up to the super welterweight division in the sport of boxing.